When we started with you guys, we were around like the 30K MRR agency point. Every time we tried to scale, every time we tried to bring on new clients, things kind of like stumbled back a little bit operationally. We almost doubled in size, all the way up to 50K, which is what we hit in December.
What was the main metric that gave you a hint that what you implemented was actually working? Hey Aaron, thanks a lot for taking the time today to get started. I would love for you to tell your story.
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. Always a pleasure to chat. So a bit of background on us and us being Growth Layer. So we are an outbound agency that prioritizes B2B lead generation for our partners. We've been in business for about 2.5 years, I want to say now. When we started with you guys, we were around like the 30K MRR agency point, working with 15, 16, 17 kind of clients all around the agency space, but then also finance and a few SaaS companies. But yeah, that's pretty much us in a nutshell. We're all about GTM and all the various different things that come with that.
And what's the personal story? Like what got you into Legion in the first place?
Yeah, so I feel like any other agency owner, just bouncing around on social media was what got me into lead gen. I was always into marketing, like went to school for marketing, had a couple marketing jobs prior to, but I think as with many, the goal was always like, let's escape the rat race. I love what I'm doing, but I want to be in full control over how I'm doing it. And all of the companies that I worked for prior to my own, I just felt were so slow and they were very archaic, for lack of a better explanation. And in most of my roles, I was kind of like this entry-level guy, nobody really trusted me, but I'm here trying to do these big, ahead of the times type things, and it never really got through to anybody. So I was like, okay, you know what? I need to go out there, see what's on the market, and like with many other journeys, go out there, find a low ticket course, make a little bit of money, jump into the higher ticket course. And it's just been pretty much a story of consistently working with the right people, given the particular bottlenecks at any given time. And we've just kind of taken that step by step as we've grown throughout the last couple of years.
Was it any specific piece of content or piece of information that give you the push to get started and to say okay, I'm actually gonna start my own business. I'm going to start my own agency?
I have to dig back in the memory banks for that one. But I think at the time, just seeing some of the guys running cold email and seeing the revenue that they were able to generate at the time, this was probably, we're 2026 now. This was probably 2023 when I first started dabbling in it. I knew client acquisition in general was kind of the space that I wanted to be at because that was so directly associated with revenue. So there was probably something on Twitter I saw from some guru. I won't name any names, but there was probably a few guys out there that were kind of flashing around Stripe screenshots, and I was like, oh man, I need to be doing that and be a part of that.
And before you joined the accelerator, what gave you the idea to join actually? What was the problem you were trying to solve?
Yeah, I would say so two things. The first thing that got us kind of pushed me to work with you guys was the established reputation. I found out about the accelerator via a post on LinkedIn, but I was always seeing your guys' team's posts on LinkedIn, and it was almost impossible to go on LinkedIn without stumbling upon one of them. And I knew that was something that I really wanted to implement myself. That was more, or I guess that was less about solving a distinct problem in the agency and more about going towards an ideal state. But on the problem side, so being an outbound agency, we had no problem with acquisition. We had no problem with bringing in new clients. And even to this point, I think we're still really, really good at bringing in clients. The one thing that we found as we were kind of bumping up against that, I think at the time it was that 30K per month level, was that every time we tried to scale, every time we tried to bring on new clients, things kind of stumbled back a little bit operationally. And from a systems perspective, we were still getting good results for a lot of our clients, but I knew there was more, and I knew there were some things that we could do to not only just like systemize fulfillment, especially for the GTMEs, but also just make things easier and make things more accessible to them. Um, I knew how many clients at the time you guys were running with, and I was like, if you guys are that size and you've kind of gotten to this point and you're able to, accomplish what you guys have, like these guys have to be able to help me with where we're at. Just you wouldn't have been able to get to where you are now without having some sort of systems in place, and that was always our weakness. We were just kind of like, for lack of a better explanation, just kind of like flying by the seat of our pants, signing clients, getting results for those that we got results for, and then kind of letting go of the ones that didn't.
What was the main change you implemented to change the way you were delivering the service, the way you were running your internal operations?
First of all, I think systemizing how the work was distributed in the first place was one of the big changes we made kind of at that 30K point. So delegating specific industry work to specific GTMEs. So we almost created like a pod structure. I think like reformatting the way that they do work into more of like a cyclical nature. Before we were kind of just like throwing campaigns here and there whenever they needed to be done, like not really setting things up in a way that was easy to, I guess, like fulfill on and then look back at the results and kind of move forward in that iterative nature. We were kind of just launching campaigns, hoping for the best, and then if they didn't work, try something else. So I think through some of the work they were doing with Louis, we kind of set up this cycle where, campaigns in that are launched on Mondays. We do a lot of our analysis on Fridays, and then going into the next week, we kind of ensure that we're always solving one bottleneck per client from one week to another. So like every single week we're getting better and we're eliminating one thing that's probably blocking us from getting results. And I think that's pushed us forward from a delivery perspective.
Perfect. And what was like one thing that happened when you started to realize, okay, this is actually starting to work in terms of the internal operations, like something that you implemented and then you started to realize like maybe the amount of clients that one GTME could manage, the onboarding was smoother, like the client satisfaction was increasing. Like what was the main metric that gave you a hint that what you implemented was actually working?
This is a game of like so many different metrics, right? Usually once you fix one, everything starts to kind of just gel, and you see it throughout the entirety of the funnel, right? Like clients start booking more meetings, there's a little bit less churn. It all kind of comes back at the end. But yeah, I would say like results in general went up. The team started to seem a little bit less stressed, I guess, because there's systems behind what they're doing. It's not just like, all right, get these clients results and good luck. Not to say that's what our process was before, but figuratively, that's kind of how it looked. But no, we've got our systems to the point where like our GTMEs are handling anywhere up to like 10 clients at a given time. So that's increased a little bit. And then the results of any given client, I think, have increased a little bit as well. But I imagine, so one metric we don't actually really track right now, and we should, is almost like a client satisfaction metric. But one of the biggest like game changer pieces of advice, which I got from you guys, and I think is just like, it's so simple, is just to meet with the clients more. Like it's probably one of the easiest changes that we'd made that's led to the biggest impact. And I would love to start tracking a metric like that, see how that's affected churn. It's only been about like a month now, but we're getting more information from clients about potential angles that we can run. They're feeling like they're more involved in the process. We're more like the outbound extension of their team versus like these two disconnected forces. And yeah, just generally they seem a little bit happier. And even the ones that, we aren't able to get results for right away, there's less of a mystery around what we're doing, right? It's not like this black box where there's just no results coming in. They're like, okay, these guys are working hard and there's a lot going on in the background. And like, sure, maybe there's been no meetings for the past month, but I know with confidence, because we're meeting bi-weekly now, that you guys are putting the pieces in place to get there. So
I agree. It's the most important. I think it gets very dangerous when the client is starting to wonder what are those guys doing. It's a bit the same when you're like a manager and you have like a direct report. You need to ask what is the person is actually doing. And I think as an agency is the same. It's like once the client is starting to ask questions like, hey, what are you guys up to? Then it starts to be dangerous. So I think having
Yeah.
great reporting, having conversations often can really help stabilize the relationship, even if you have a bit underwhelming results. If you can really show that you're putting the work and are learning, I think the learning component is also very important. Like if like at least they're learning from you, then I think you can really maintain the relationship in the long term.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different things you can get out of a relationship with an outbound agency, right? It's not always going to be booked meetings or sales or revenue. If you're working with a client that's maybe like pre-product market fit, a lot of the value is in the data that you get from the replies, from like, testing out the different personas and things like that. And by meeting with them, you're creating this like direct feedback channel to provide them those insights. And sometimes that's enough just to hold on to them. But yeah, I definitely agree with your comment on the client questions. I always say to my team, it's like if they're asking you about something, then like we've already kind of dropped the ball and lost. We should always be the one ahead of that.
I agree. And could you do a quick breakdown for me? So when you joined, you were at 30K. Right now, can you remind me of like the current revenue? And you were telling me that the goal is to go to 100K. What did you do from 30K to now? And what's going to be the goal from where you stand now with revenue to reach the six figures?
When we started with you guys back in like September, I think we were bobbling between like 25 and 30, and it was probably like 3 or 4 months of just going back and forth between 25, 30. Then between September to December, we almost doubled in size, all the way up to 50K, which is what we hit in December. Biggest changes there were obviously systemizing fulfillment, being able to take on more clients. But I think the way that we were positioning ourselves and the experience that we were providing clients also kind of just gave me confidence on the sales side of things. There's one thing that a lot of people don't talk about, and that's like being a part of founder-led sales. When you don't have confidence in fulfillment, you're going to basically push yourself out of a lot of deals.
Yeah,
You don't
I agree.
think you're doing the right thing for the client if they're not going to get the results. So by putting those systems in place on the fulfillment side of things, on the ops side of things, and even just like giving the client this experience that's like worth the value that you're providing, it gives like you as a salesperson so much more confidence to sell. So that's one thing that I saw going into December. It also helped that, a bunch of clients were, trying to get tax breaks and stuff like that. So it got us up to that number nicely. But we're going to carry forward that momentum into January, no problem. Like, January is also a very big time for a lot of people to put new things in motion. And I think just based on the trajectory that we're at right now, 100K by like, originally I was saying June would be the goal. So like beginning of Q2, but I almost kind of want to push myself a little bit harder and see if we can get there by the end of like Q1. Maybe we fail, maybe we fall a little bit short, but I think we have enough people in the right places to potentially get there.
Nice, exciting. And what's going to be the goal in terms of client acquisition? So how are you actually getting clients right now? And what would you want to put in place to acquire clients all the way to your six figures per month?
I guess after like Q4 2025, I have been content pilled for lack of a better explanation. Like we, as an outbound agency, have always acquired clients through cold email, and we still do. But YouTube really started taking off for us. We've established ourselves as an authority there, which is amazing. And I'm also still working with you guys to try and get LinkedIn to become this almost like authority ecosystem. Like I'm working with you guys to push the team along, to get them on the content engine, and really like push the idea of building out their own personal brands. So that's something I'm really excited for. I think if I can get them behind that, put the systems in place there, and really like turn LinkedIn into a very similar funnel for us as YouTube, and get those both kind of moving at the same time, that's going to be massive. And then on top of that, we're jumping into a bunch of paid channels as well. So running meta ads, might jump into LinkedIn ads as well if we can get LinkedIn moving, and then kind of just see where they all go. Ultimately just want to have this like huge ecosystem of paid organic.
Do you think that your current service delivery system are strong enough to sustain the growth you envision? The agency making 100K per month, do you think you would need to change a lot of your internal operations to sustain that increase in clients?
I feel like, yeah, 100%. Like there's always going to be things that we need to do. And I think the operations and systems side of things, as much as we have improved it since starting with you guys a couple months ago, there still is like a lot to cover. And the interesting thing with like systems and ops is the needs and requirements change as you grow. Like you might put in all of these systems at 30K, and then the ones that you need at 50 are different. The ones that you need at 75 are different. So it's obviously going to be something that we're going to want to chat with you guys about as we get to those points. Had a cool conversation too with your team about some of the agents that you guys are putting in place, and we're testing those out internally. So I'm super excited for that. Saw kind of like the efficiency that's adding for the GTMEs on your team. So it'll be cool to see how that transfers over for us, and maybe it makes them a little bit more efficient. They can take on a few more clients. And we'll just keep trying to follow in your guys' footsteps in that regard.
We'll do everything we can to make it happen. I think we can do a 100K by end of Q1. And right now, after so long in business, what's your current philosophy when it comes to scaling your agency?
I think going back to the content piece, just like establishing yourself as an authority in the space is going to be the biggest thing for anybody trying to scale an agency right now. So content is going to be huge, building out on LinkedIn, building out on YouTube, just building that like parasocial relationship with those that see your content. It just makes sales that much easier. There's so much competition out there as well. So to kind of have that moat almost built around you from a content perspective is massive. But I also think there's other moats that are necessary as you scale as well, like building IP, like things that you're offering that other agencies aren't, and just tackling it that way. But I think in general, like love content, love what content is going to do for us. Scaling in any regard is just going to require a lot of force in a lot of different areas. So we're kind of going to take all of these different channels, be it ads, be it YouTube, be it LinkedIn, be it email, and just get them all moving for us at once. I don't think it's as possible now being 2026 as it was in maybe like 2020 or 2021 to just scale to 100, 150, 200, 300 and beyond with one channel.
And I think brand is going to become like probably the biggest moat in the AI era, because now tech is becoming so cheap that everyone tomorrow can just like watch like a YouTube video and be like, okay, I'm starting a GTM agency. So you compete with hundreds of different agencies. And I think we were discussing before the call, like the longevity in the market and how long you've been in business and the brand you've been building, the brand equity is really gonna like make you stand out compared to like the hundreds of agencies that are probably gonna pop in 2026.
It is scary now. Like anybody with a decent amount of IQ can jump on and create a website on Lovable and like, I don't want to say come up with like fake case studies, but really like make themselves appear to be this established company. So I think like content and knowledge and things around that nature are, the only true way to actually show that what you're talking about. You are really this established figure and you're not just somebody who whipped up a quick website and send a couple of emails.
And talking from experience as well, I always discuss that with content, like when you see people talking about content, it's always like, oh, value-based content. But I think it's actually the end of this. If it's just like 5 things to have your cold email successful in 2026, I think now is more going to be like, I did that experiment, so I ran that campaign, or I've got those results for clients, and everything you say, you should be the only person on the planet that should be able to say those things. So it should be your numbers, your case study, your clients, because I think if you just try to give general advice, now anyone can just go and prop some LLM and have the exact same answer as you. So like you always need to look at it as like, what can I talk about where there is no one else on the planet that could talk about that specific thing I'm about to write about?
100%. I agree with that completely. And I haven't really thought about it that way too much, but that does spark the thought in my head. It's like now information is not the thing that people don't have. Everybody has access to the same information that you do. It's more so just about like your direct experience through your business that you can kind of like relay to other people, and maybe those like learnings and different things at different stages that you can pass off that become unique to you, unless you've come up with some sort of like, proprietary
revolutionary idea.
things,
Yeah.
right? Which, it's pretty rare nowadays, even if people position themselves that way.
It's a good transition to the last question I wanted to ask you. Talking about learnings and experience, if you could go back and give advice to yourself 6 months ago, what would be the advice you would give yourself?
I would say the biggest thing is, continue to seek information from those ahead of you. That's a big one. I've always been a huge proponent of that. And a lot of my success to a lot of the different partners that I've worked with throughout the time. But I also think there was a long stretch in the summer, so that would have been 6 months ago, where we just kind of did the same thing over and over again and expected a different result. I think the biggest issue there was trying to scale with too many hats. So if I were to give myself advice 6 months ago, I'd probably tell myself to get out of fulfillment a little bit faster, really like own your lane, if that makes sense. Like bring in the right people that are responsible for various different aspects of the business. And I think a lot of people think that that's something that's like very far down the road. Like, oh, I can only really hire somebody that is super credible and like competent when I hit 100K or when I hit 200K. But you can realistically find some really, really talented people that just see your vision and want to be a part of what you're doing and jump in. And as soon as you start putting those proper heads in the proper seats, and allow yourself just to focus on one lane instead of 10, the growth is just kind of like exponential.
I agree. Beautiful way to end it. Aaron, thanks a lot for taking the time today.
Absolutely. It was great chatting with you, Alex.